People have often said that music critics are frustrated musicians, which isn't true at all. Music critics are frustrated disc jockeys.
Bon, on va essayer de soigner cette frustration alors en partie ce soir avec vous.
I said rock critics are frustrated DJs. This rock critic is a bad DJ.
Me and my cousin, one Arthur McBride, as we went walking down.
I never meant to do anything about this music but write about it, because I wanted to write about it, not to accomplish something. It was already great.
And for recreation, we went on.
Vous faites votre stock. Alors, qu'est-ce que vous avez choisi?
Well, this is a wonderful Elvis collection that came out, I'm not sure, it came out in the 70s before he died. And it's such a fantastic overview of his entire career. They put, really impressive garbage on here, along with stuff that, will never be forgotten. Maybe we could listen to a little bit of Trying to Get to You. This is an unreleased live version.
I've been traveling over mountains, even through the valleys too.
That was one of the songs he recorded at Sun in 1955. And here it is, 1968. And he lets loose. It just takes off at the end. The last three choruses. He is so thrilled. He is so satisfied. He's so gratified. It's as if he always knew there was more to this song than he ever got back in 1955, and he's got it now. That's as great as any recording he ever made. Maybe the greatest. I've always loved this cover. Look at that hair. That says, I'm back and you have no idea what to expect.
Donc là, vous avez choisi, c'est quoi?
This is the Coasters. This is going to be something like 1958. Here we go. Idol with a Golden Head.
An idol with a golden head.
Great big idol with a golden head.
Put it on a shelf right above my bed.
Great big idol with a golden head.
Got down on my knees and began to pray.
Great big idol with a
That's why they're called the Coasters, because they're from the West Coast. All their songs were written by and produced by Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. Their records got more and more ridiculous. And that's an example of one of their more ridiculous records. Let's write a song about an idol with a golden head. It sounds like something from an Uncle Scrooge comic book. And that's a lot of what rock and roll was, and at its best always is. It's ridiculous. It is pointless. It has no purpose. It has no meaning. Except it reaches you and it makes you feel different than you felt before.
Oh, gee, what did you see?
Went down to the creek to see for myself.
These are the kind of folkways records that were just so marvelous. Along with putting out ethnic music from all over the world and a huge collection of all different sorts of American folk music. Bertolt Brecht, when he was being accused of being a communist, here they have put out his testimony on an album. Here is a news broadcast about the Selma Voting Rights March in 1965. Sounds of steam locomotives. Number 3. This is an album I'm not sure we want to listen to. Speech After the Removal of the Larynx. We could all imagine what that will sound like. Bob Dylan once said a marvelous thing about folk music, but it applies to any music. He said, a folk song has 1,000 faces, and you have to meet them all. And he said, and no song sounds the same at any given time. It depends on who's playing and who's listening. So this stuff is all unstable. We're unstable, and we bring, our own doubts, to everything. I'll play you a moment that probably everybody listening to this program knows, everybody has heard, but for me, it is the signal moment in rock and roll. It is the moment more than any other that says something is about to happen. And all it is the first few seconds of Like a Rolling Stone. This record begins with a promise. Something is about to happen. A story is about to be told. A life is about to be lived. And as the record goes on, it keeps all those promises. But the beginning, where the promise is made, is maybe the most thrilling and delicious moment of all. So.
Once upon a time you dressed so fine, threw the bumps of dime in your prime. Then people call, say beware doll, you're bound to fall, you thought they were all kidding you. You used to laugh about everybody that was.
I'm listening to this just now, and I'm listening to the guitar playing by Mike Bloomfield that people have always talked about. I'm listening to the organ playing by Al Cooper that people have always talked about. But what I'm really hearing is the drumming by Bobby Gregg, which as far as I'm aware of, nobody ever talks about. And what I'm hearing happening here, the dynamics of the performance, is that in the middle of every verse, Bobby Gregg, not at the end, not when the chorus is coming, in the middle, Bobby Gregg creates a hill right in the middle of the song that everyone else is going to have to climb. And it's this challenge that suddenly appears in the song, and people are reaching, and they're playing more urgently, and they're playing more intensely, and they get to the top of the hill, and Bobby Gregg then plays a pattern that tips them over the hill, and they go right on down it. You're seeing soldiers on a battlefield, and they can't stop. They have to keep going, and here's this obstacle, and they're going to go over it. And that happens again and again in this song. So everybody is making a contribution that he couldn't have expected before.
Cette collection-là, les Sex Pistols, est-ce que ça résonne pour vous?
Let's see here. Well, I mean, while we're on the subject of fanfares, we can listen to another fanfare. In some ways, this is so much cruder than what we listened to with Like a Rolling Stone, and yet it makes the same kind of promise. And it's a promise maybe that's kept even more than it is on Like a Rolling Stone. You'd have to play the whole record to hear all of that. I remember playing this record for a friend of mine. He's a very morbid guy. He's a gun enthusiast. He's always out at the firing range. But he's a very morbid, dark person. And I played him this record. He didn't know who the Sex Pistols were. didn't know anything about this kind of music. At the end of it, he was just shattered. He was a puddle. He said, "Don't play that again. I couldn't go through that again." He didn't mean he didn't like it. He meant, I couldn't go through this again. And I think the fanfare of this record gives you an idea of why something like that might happen. You know, I never noticed this before. The last single the Sex Pistols made, Holidays in the Sun, is dominated by the sound of marching feet in hobnailed Nazi boots. And that's the sound that they have put onto the record, the stamp, 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 stamp. And the drumming at the very beginning of this record is the exact same sound at the exact same cadence. It has that ferocity to it. And you know, they're going to show you something. They're saying in those opening moments that you're probably not going to want to see, but you can't wait to find out what it is. You just can't turn away. It was painful for me to turn that record off. Here's Doc Boggs, one of my favorite singers. He first recorded in the 20s. He was a Virginia mine worker, one of the great banjo players and singers in American history. He disappeared after 1929, I think, and he was found again by Mike Seeger in 1963 and immediately began recording again. This is one of his new albums.
Come on, you good time people, while I have money to spend. Tomorrow.
What's extraordinary about his singing on this performance is the way the words stretch out. It's as if he can't bear to speak the words that he's speaking. But as he's speaking, these words become infinitely fascinating because each word has a whole lifetime of experience and regret inside of it. So he won't let the words end. And he doesn't actually pronounce the words as he's singing. One word just kind of fades into another one. It's all one word.
All over Kentucky, good people. I've gambled part of the way through.
And this is one of the new records he made, a record he made in 1960, and it made in the 1960s in 63, 64. And the music didn't quite have the bite anymore. It had the artistry, but it wasn't as cruel, it wasn't as vicious. He wasn't as angry in 1963 as he was in 1927. But I'll play you the same song as he recorded it in 1927. And this is harsher. This is bloodier. Well, you can hear for yourself the differences between the two of them.
Come on, you good time people, while I've got money to spend. Tomorrow might be money, and I don't have a dollar, not a friend.
Merci beaucoup, Greil Marcus, d'avoir été avec nous ce soir.
Thank you so much.
When I had plenty of money, good people, my friends were all standing around. Just as soon as my pocketbook was empty, not a friend on earth to be found. Last time I seen my little woman, good people, she had a wine glass in her hand. She was drinking down her troubles with a low-down sorry man.